Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Miss Kristina Gruell, introduce herself to our listeners and viewers at home. I know I practiced in the pre-show. Did I get the pronunciation right this time?
You did.
Excellent. When you're hard of hearing, everything when it comes to pronouncing things right is difficult.
It's easy that my last name is pronounced the same as a yucky porridge. So,
Yeah, I feel for authors and politicians that have those names where it's like no one's ever going to be able to find your website because they can't spell your name, let alone pronounce it.
yeah.
I understand why some authors go with like John Smith as their pen name because at least everyone knows how to spell it.
Yeah, that is true.
So before we get started, it's been a couple years since you were on the show, so we're going to just reset the clock and ask the religion questions again because we know we've had audience turnover since then. So, Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Well, I don't know if you can see on the bed behind me, but I have Han Solo and Leia Organa pillows that say "I love you, I know."
Aw.
I have two dogs named Lando Calrissian and Leia Organa. And my nickname in our household is Empress Palpatine, and I'm married to Darth Vader. So obviously big Star Wars fans, but my daughter has a name from Firefly as well.
Did you
So
go with
we're
Serenity or River?
huh?
Serenity or River?
Serenity. Yeah.
Both are excellent choices.
Yeah. And we have the Firefly board game with all of the expansions.
I
And
didn't
that
know
is
they made
our
a board
favorite.
game.
Huh?
I didn't know they made a board game.
Oh, it's epic. Yeah,
So,
it's amazing. So you pick out a ship in the beginning of the game, and then you pick your captain and you build your crew and you tool around the universe doing jobs and upgrading your ship and getting crew and all that kind of stuff. Our favorite version of the game is the one where illegal jobs make you twice as much money, which is
so,
amazing.
so this is an actual board game, like tabletop, little
Yes,
figurines.
yes.
I mean,
And we have the massive version with all the expansions. So it like the mat itself covers most of our 10-person dining room table.
oh, okay.
And then all of the cards and the extra stuff, we have a separate table to put those stuff, and we have like business card holders to hold the decks. It's an elaborate setup. I will have to send you pictures.
You know, we always do this when the opportunity arises. If people sign, so this is going to air in April. So if people sign up for your newsletter in April, can you put those pictures of the game in your what's after April? May
Yeah,
newsletter, so that way they can see it.
I will.
It's a
Yes.
perfect reason to get them to sign up, dear listener. She writes good books too, but you also get to learn about nerdy Firefly games I didn't know about.
Yes. Yeah.
Is this one of those ones that takes forever to play, or does it have a mechanic that lets it go pretty quick?
So we've kind of mastered the art of if we need to pause to go like feed our children. Um, my husband found these really good cards that are dry erase index cards. So like we can just write down like what our thought was, what our plan for the next turn is, and then step away and go do things. But our favorite thing to do is when my in-laws come who are in their 70s. They love this board game. And we will get a little bit tipsy and we will pay for like 5 hours. And we don't play like the game is you play until somebody hits 15,000. We play until we get tired. And then, there's like a general, okay, finish up the jobs that you have and then we'll tally it up. So yeah, it's a blast.
Now, on a scale of Monopoly to Uno to Settlers of Catan, where is it on that sliding scale of destroy your family?
It depends upon how bloodthirsty you want to be. We care more about making it fun for everyone, when it's like me and my husband, or him, us and my in-laws. But we're not adverse to, when we're playing with other serious board game players, to jump to murder. Definitely Monopoly level Geneva Conventions at that point.
I know I've told of the three, Monopoly is the least damaging to your family, followed after that by Uno, and then Settlers of Catan. It's like, okay, you might be
Oh no! In my
divorced.
husband's family, Monopoly can get people to like flip the board and storm out of the room.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like the trade agreements when Gruells play Monopoly is like on the level of Geneva Convention trying to get it's messy.
there's there's a funny meme floating around about Uno, about family. There is no family in Uno.
Yeah.
There's only winning. It sounds like you guys' approach to Monopoly.
Yeah. I actually don't play Monopoly with any of them because it gets too bloodthirsty for me.
You value your sanity. I can appreciate that.
Yes. I'll
All
go
right.
play Exploding Kittens with the kids.
Oh, I've never heard of this one either. I feel like I need to get my board game
Oh
ready.
man, so it's a cool like deck card game, and there's so that for every player there's one less Exploding Kitten card, and basically if you draw it, if you have a diffuse, you can keep the kitten from exploding, and then put the Exploding Kitten back in the deck anywhere you want, from the bottom to the top to anywhere in between. So like if you don't like the player that comes after you, you can put it on the top. So it gets really, really bloodthirsty. Our 8-year-old is amazing at Exploding Kittens. But I mean, we have to we've actually had a family rule we've had to institute where you can't pick on one player. You have to spread the love or the hate around, so you can't just say, hey, I'm going to steal all your cards, or I'm going to make you have, multiple turns to the same person every time. You have to spread it around.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I almost feel like at this point, like we do nostalgia type episodes. We just recorded the franchises that matter to us episode, which was just an hour and a half of us being nostalgic.
Yeah.
It sounds like we need an episode about board games in general.
I would be totally down for that.
All right, I'm gonna write that down in the show notes, and you're gonna.
My
be on
husband would be too. Like he
cool.
is so obsessed with board games that he has a spreadsheet that like details how many times he's played a certain game, what the results were. I mean, it's intense.
All right, I am writing that down. We will get that onto the schedule for this summer and see what we can put together. Because one of the reasons I got into video games is because it's hard to find a table when you're looking for board games, right? Like,
yeah.
And even if you can get people, the chance of getting something beyond the basic Monopoly or whatever is hard, especially if you want to try something like a Risk or an Axis. God forbid you want to play Axis and Allies. It's one of those things where finding people. There was a company that opened local to us. It's like Chutes and Ladders, but it was like lattes and ladders, and it was it's a place where you just go there to play board games and drink coffee. But unfortunately, they could not survive the downtime, and they lost their lease during COVID, which happened to a lot of companies, unfortunately. But yeah, I was excited for that for a hot minute. I'm like, I'm gonna have someone to actually play a board game with. This will be fun.
And speaking of the pandemic, and one of the things that it did to the board game industry is there's now a lot more board games that are either solo or 2 players.
Really?
So my husband has a ton of board games that's what he's doing right now, is he's playing a board game solo where you play against an AI or against the board game. And there's like mechanics where you roll for, the board game, and then you roll for yourself. It's really, really interesting. And it kind of also, like, if I'm having, like, my best writing times when the gears are turning is usually about 5 to 9 o'clock at night, which is not great when you have kids. But once we put the kids down, I'll sometimes come into our office, our bedroom office, and
I like that word.
Rock out a couple of hours, and he'll go play one of his board games.
That is cool. We're definitely gonna have to put that on the books for this summer because now I'm
Yeah.
intrigued. All right, because we are polytheistic here, we do have to finish these religion questions. So, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
The Wheel of Time. Here's my Jordan Con badge ribbon from I think last year. No, 22. Yeah, I'm big into the Wheel of Time. I'm also known as the Amerlin seat among my my Wheel of Time nerd friends. I go to Jordan Con, which is a Wheel of Time convention based in Atlanta every year, and nerd out with all of my Wheel of Time friends.
Size, is it comparable to like Dragon Con that's in Atlanta?
It's about 1,000 to 1,200 people, so it's a smaller convention. But that it kind of one of the taglines when somebody new joins the convention is "Welcome home," because we're a family. I mean, everyone that's there. I've only been able to go this will be my third year, and I feel like I've been going for a decade. It started with local people, and when Robert Jordan was still alive, he would come to the convention and read excerpts of his books. His wife used to go. She doesn't anymore, but Maria Simmons, who was his personal assistant, comes every year, and she is just fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the crying shames of adulthood is we do stop asking each other the important question. So we are on a 3-person mission to bring this back here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. So, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Triceratops.
Excellent choice. Just looks cool. Why is it your favorite dinosaur?
Because my daughter would call me a betrayer if I didn't say Triceratops.
Excellent reason.
Her favorite dinosaur.
You don't want to make the crotch goblins mad at you.
No, she's a Pop-Tart though.
Oh, that's right. We discussed this in the pre-show.
Yeah.
That's a term that I learned in the military, and I've used that around some civilians, and they're like, well, "That's just rude." And I'm like, "No, it's said with love. You're good. You're good."
No, it's said with good. My oldest is a crotch goblin, and my younger two are Pop-Tarts. They were C-sections, so.
There's a few other ones that are less family friendly that are along the same veins that I heard growing up, and then the more congenial, just brat. You're a Navy brat or an Army brat or whatever. I remember when I met people on the civilian side, and my sisters and brother and I would introduce ourselves that way, and they were like, "Why are you calling yourself names?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is normal." Yeah. So, all right. Because we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we are no longer knuckle-dragging troglodytes. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Tea.
Is it Earl Grey black?
I drink mine. So I have a blend that I use from Republic of Tea. I mix the Assam breakfast tea with the Irish or British breakfast tea, and dried lemon and orange peel with whipped honey. I'm like bougie with my tea. It's like a whole part of my morning ritual is making my tea, and it just sets me up for the day.
And it's called, the company is Republic of Tea?
Yeah, that's the brand that I use. I've got like 18 different teas from there, but my go-to breakfast ones are a blend of Assam and then Irish or British breakfast. And then I get raw honey, and about once a month I put about a gallon of that in my stand mixer, and I whip it until it's like white and frothy and creamy, and it really mellows the flavor, and it's just really, really delicious. And it gets used for everything from my tea to spreading it on toast to all kinds of things.
Interesting. I will link to the Republic of Tea, dear listener. I'm going to look that up so that way you can check it out as well. We do have some of the tea drinkers here. The leaf water versus the bean water is a great debate. But how did you come up with your blend?
Just years of trying different stuff. We're a house divided in the caffeine wars. My husband has a coffee bar with his coffee maker, and then we have an espresso maker and a French press for the rare occasions that I do want a coffee related thing. I can't do coffee anymore, but I can do espresso. It's lower in acidity, which is really weird. And then I have like my own little tea bar that's got all of my accoutrement and my different pots and all my cups and stuff. Yeah, it was just years of trying different teas from them and kind of doing, you know, a scoop of this tea and a scoop of that tea until I just kind of fell into the one that I like.
That's fair. I actually normally like coffee better, but when I was in grad school in Nova, they had Tea Havana, which was sort of like the Starbucks, but for tea.
Yeah.
They ended up getting bought out by Starbucks, and then they went under. I'm not sure the whole provenance of why that company went under, but they had a tea, and I can't remember what it was called, but it tasted like Big Red gum.
Oh, funny.
It was delicious, just the right amount of cinnamon, and I have not been able to find anything like that. I know one of the things that got Tea Havana is they got sued for false advertisement, so they would like have you taste samples and like, you can do this too, and you'd buy it, and you'd find out to get the robust flavor you got at the store, you got to like quadruple strength brew it, which means you don't keep it, like it doesn't last as long.
Yeah.
So when you compare the price per cup to what they were quoting you because they were giving the watered down measurements, was in some states was considered fraud, and so they got sued. I don't know what happened with those lawsuits, but
I have no idea.
But I want to find an equivalent tea that I was like drinking Big Red gum.
Yeah, so they do have some that have different spices. One of my favorites is it's got like a poinsettia on the top. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's got cinnamon and different like warming spices. It's kind of more of a holiday blend, but whenever my mother-in-law is here, she asks me to make that for her.
Nice.
Yeah, Michael drank tea when he was stationed in Afghanistan. He was a big tea drinker then.
So I did coffee the 2 times that I was in Iraq, but we would do, when we weren't at like the mess hall, it was the Folgers instant coffee that comes in the MREs, and you just put it under your gums like dip, because it sends the caffeine straight into your bloodstream. To this day, I cannot look at instant coffee the same. I get like shudders and flashbacks. I'm just like,
I imagine.
And it's not even like bad flashbacks. It's just like flashbacks to getting the caffeine shakes.
Yeah.
There's a reason people put the tobacco under their gums like that, because you want to go, through the gum straight to the bloodstream. Probably not doctor approved, so I would not recommend that to your listener.
No.
That was what we did there, and it was So I can't do instant coffee.
Yeah, he was in Afghanistan in 2011, and like his room was a container ship, so it was really interesting.
When I was in Iraq in 2003 and then again in 2005, because I got there November 2004 and left December 2005, we were staying in we called them circus tents, but they were the really big round circular tents we bought off the local Bedouins. Well, the U.S. Army bought them while they were trying to source enough Army tents. And then about halfway through my second tour, we switched to the big green Army tents, but we still lived in tents. The idea of living in a Connex box sounds heavenly.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. He had one of those washing machines that like you pumped the thing to make it spin. It was.
Oh yeah. I've seen those. Although I will say that because we were doing convoy operations, we did have this really cool thing that one of the families donated for our company, and it was like this cot, but because normally we would have just an Army cot on the back of the truck, and we'd sleep on the line, because it was once we escorted the convoys in, you still have to secure the content, so it's not like we could just leave it. So someone was always on it anyway, so we just brought cots out. And then about 2 months into our tour, so right about January, we got given a bunch of cots that folded out, but then they had like tent around it, so it was like a cot, but then it had like an overhead that dropped, and then it had mosquito netting that dropped all the way to the dirt. So you were on a floating tent, essentially. It was like a cot that became a tent. I've seen pictures of them at home, and they were pricey. So someone spent a lot of money to take care of us back home. Someone back home did, because it was all private donations. But man, I want one of those if I ever go camping again. I mean, I know it's bougie, but it was comfortable.
In the early days of the war, there was a lot of that homegrown effort to support the troops. I was part of a group called Mail Star Angels, which did pen pals and care packages for troops that didn't have a lot of family. So I did, it was like snail mail back with the handwritten stuff. And then we would do care packages. I remember one that I did where it was the mechanics for an army base, and no, I think it was Marines, and it was women were the mechanics, and a lot of the kind of hazing that happened is they would read out the packing slip because you had to put the customs form on the outside. If it was something embarrassing, they would read it out. So we had to come with creative names for female hygiene products.
Oh, I would have gone the other way. I would have leaned into it, and I'd have found out like who their chief or sergeant was, and I'm like, so and so's hemorrhoid cream, and I mean, I'd have had fun with it. I didn't made it so embarrassing they didn't want to read it out.
Yeah, well, we did what the girls wanted us to do, so they wanted it to be discreet. So since it was for the mechanics, it was like dipsticks and shop rags and all kinds of stuff. But one of the funniest things was I was in a group of people my age, and we all got together and donated stuff. And one of the guys was like, well, if you tell me what you want, I'll go buy it from the store. And so I gave him a list, and his face turned bright red. But he did it, and he texted me from the store, and he was like, is this what you wanted? And pictures of it. It was hilarious.
So you'll get a kick out of this then. So when I got my driver's license, because we're of an age where everyone rushed to get their driver's license, right? Like nowadays, kids don't seem to want them, but I rushed out to get it. So I wanted, like, I've got my driver's license in my greasy little hand. I'm like, Mom, I want to go somewhere. What do you need? And she wanted to like call my BS. So she sent me to the store because I've got a brother and two sisters, and my brother's close to me in age. So we both went. And when we got there, she's like, here's the list. And we didn't open it. We just went to the grocery store and we opened it. And it's hygiene products for my sisters and my mom. And of course, this is before cell phones.
Yeah.
So I had to go up and ask the clerk. My brother's hiding on the other aisle because he didn't want no part of it. I mean, you quickly learn to get over it, like your shyness. Although I will say wrestling in high school kind of does that. If you can walk out in a crowded auditorium wearing nothing but a spandex leotard, you can rule the world.
Yeah. My ex-husband still, would not buy any of that stuff. And I was really shocked when I, married my husband, and I said, I need to go to the store to get blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I'll pick it up on the way home.
I think the military kind of desensitizes us to a point where it's like, oh, that's it.
I don't think it's just the military. I think it's the quality of the person. I mean,
maybe, but I grew up around the military, so that's all my point of reference is. Like, I moved from being a brat to being in to being a veteran, hanging out with other veterans. So I recognize it does skew my viewpoint on some things.
Yeah. I have other veterans in my family that still don't have any interest in buying any of that kind of stuff, and they make fun of people who do. And
I don't get that at all. I mean, they're family, right? You get what you got to get. So that was the thing. You said you did the care packages. We would get them. The organization at the time was called Soldiers Angels, which was another one. I know there were a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And then like some of these people would send the care packages, and the guys would take the package and then just ditch the letter and never even read it. So whenever I found those on mail day, and they weren't care packages, they were share packages because they weren't just yours.
Yeah.
But whenever I would find those, I always grabbed those letters and I would read them, and then I would write back. And I got so many letters back, shocked that someone actually replied. Like, maybe you're taking the time out of your day to do this. The cool thing was when you were overseas, like anything could be, you can make a letter, be postage. In fact, the back of the MRE boxes, you could turn it into a postcard. They're actually formatted for that if you wanted.
Oh, wow.
Because the individual MRE box, not the cardboard box, I mean, you could, but writing on it would be a pain. It's corrugated cardboard. It'd be a pain in the butt to write on without a marker. But you could turn anything. So I would go and see how outrageous I could get and then turn it into a postcard and see if they would stop me. We made it all the way to used Burger King because they had a Burger King in Kuwait when we were going to the rear for stuff, we would go to used Burger King wrappers and the pizza place. What I think it was a Pizza Hut, but whatever the pizza place was, and we'd get those. And finally, they balked that food still on the box. They're like, nope,
That's funny.
Handley, that's too much. Oh, like, okay. I just wanted to see where the line was. I had to test it.
Yeah.
Did anybody ever write you back when you were doing that?
Oh yeah, I think at my parents' house I still have a box of all of them. And of course I was 17, 18 to 20 when I was doing that back in 2003 to 2005. And most of the women in my organization were mothers and grandmothers. So
Right.
yeah, I did get quite a few gentlemen writing me back because, I guess who wants to write back a grandmother when you have a 17-year-old chick, 18-year-old chick writing you letters? So yeah, I got a lot of them.
The grandmothers were the best. They sent you the best replies with cookies, and sometimes they would send entertainment because they basically made you their adopted grandchild. That kid wasn't planning right. I mean, cute girls are cute girls, but chocolate chip cookies, man, they messed up.
Well, and see, I still did stuff like that.
Yeah,
because
we did a lot of that. That was always fun.
Yeah, my older brother was in the Navy, and so I had a strong feeling of needing to support, and a lot of the people in my life were very impressed at my age that I was spending so much time on getting donations, sending the packages, writing the letters. So I got a lot of financial help from other people so that I could do as much as I could do. I remember one of the favorite things and the most requested was baby wipes.
Oh yeah.
Like everything from cleaning guns to like a spit shower. They loved baby wipes. And
we called it something else, but that is not family friendly.
Yeah. Well, what was funny is my husband had never been exposed to baby wipes until we had a baby together. And he discovered how versatile that they are. Our youngest is 8 years old and we still buy baby wipes.
Oh yeah. The other one that we were doing in the early days was silly string, because it's a good way to check for like tripwires and stuff. You just spray the silly string out and it'll land on the wire if there is one. For people that were kicking in doors and stuff. I know our breach guy carried a can of silly spray in his cargo pocket. It's weird things you don't really think about having uses like that.
Yeah.
At one point in time, even like prophylactics were used to keep your barrel dry. But by the time I was in, that was an urban legend. I don't know if they actually did that or not, because we had barrel caps you could get that were purposely built that were a lot more secure. So. We actually had some of the ladies that wrote there were like 3 different ladies and their husbands were writing. They were one of them, like 2 of them were grandmotherly and their sons had served in Nam. So they were just, kind of paying it forward. But they showed up at their homecoming, which was kind of cool. I got to put a face to a name.
That's
and awesome. I still talk to them to this day. There was a famous case out of Pennsylvania during the early war where a guy was buying all these movies and he was burning a crap ton of copies of all these movies and then sending the bootlegs to the troops in the field. And they tried to come after him. And he's like, well, I only burned 1 copy of each. And that was stored offsite for my personal protection. Because if you own the DVD, you can burn 1 copy and store it in a safe, right, to protect your purchase. It's if you do the more than one where it gets gray. So the official story was I only made 1 copy and I just bought a lot of them. And then when people found out what he was doing, he's in the Stars and Stripes at the time, they just started mailing him stuff to mail in with his packages. Because we would get these little, it was like about the size of a lunchbox. It was a portable DVD player that would, fold in half. I mean, I know it's ancient tech at this point when streaming's a thing, but we lived on those movies when there was downtime.
Oh, yeah. It's funny how, people our age growing up with, the war overseas, all of the hoops that we had to jump through for communication. And then, being, my husband retired in January 2020 and we had the ability to email and, occasionally have phone calls when he was gone. And that just wasn't stuff that could happen.
We could call when I was there in 04 to 05. I could not in the first one. There was really not the infrastructure for it. But on the second tour, we could call, but you could always tell because they were monitored lines when someone spoke out of turn about what the mission was. Like, oh, we're going on a patrol tomorrow. Suddenly, all the lines went dead and the base comms went down for the outgoing private side.
Yeah.
The cool thing for me was because my mom worked for the Department of the Navy, I could call her office line to line, and I could just go to the USO instead of going to the phone card line. And I just have the USO connect to my mom's office, and they would connect to wherever. The thing that was hard is getting used to time zones. It was like, oh crap, it's like midnight for you guys, or 2 a.m. because it's the middle of the day for me, right? And sometimes that was a little bit tough getting used to. Like your night and day was different than theirs.
My husband's last tour was he was in Japan for 18 months.
Okay.
And me and the kids were here in Texas. And so living with the time zone shift for so long was insane. When I was going to bed, he was getting up. And when he was going to bed, I was getting up. So it was just really difficult. So like we usually had a call when he first woke up in the morning. I get to talk to him for a little bit. If I was still awake when he was on lunch, I could talk to him. And then when, he was a department head, so he had his own phone, which made it a little bit easier. But yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was weird. It was almost like a family reunion sometimes, because a lot of the times I'd show up on the various fobs in Iraq and I'd run into cousins. Like, did somebody feed the gremlins after dark? You're multiplying. I'm like, oh, it's just my cousin. My extended family's so big that if someone told me like they're a Handley, they're related to you, I'm just going to believe them by default because there's so many of us. I'm like, I can't possibly know all of my cousins. So, all right. So one of the things that we normally ask our veterans, and since you're kind of our military veterans, you're adjacent to that, having been dependent. Do you feel like your time around your husband's service and then your siblings and your parents affects the way you tell stories?
So my older brother served, and my grandfather served, and and then of course Michael. I definitely think it does. Anytime that I'm doing anything nautical or military, I am popping in. My husband and I both work from home, so I'm popping in and out of his office, asking questions, sending him emails with scenes to read. I definitely feel like his service and also his he is a huge military history buff, so I want to get all of that stuff right.
That makes sense, especially the nautical stuff, because you're writing fantasy mostly, so we're talking master and commander levels of Age of Sail with magic and stuff, right?
Yeah, my books are set. My first series is set in kind of the equivalent of the 1700s of this world. So I've got trains, guns, swords, and magic. But steam powered things are starting to become a thing, the trains, and people are starting to look at ships and wonder if that's possible. But then we also have magic users who are able to, put wind in the sails of a ship to make it move faster. And I remember one really funny argument that I had with my then editor, where she was disagreeing about what the brow of the ship was. And she was like, there's another word for it. And I was like, that's what it's called. And she kept arguing back and forth. And I finally said, that's what Mike said it's called. And she was like, oh, fair point. Moving on.
I mean, on the one hand, it's nice that she was trying to be that thorough for you.
Oh, yeah. She was amazing. I really miss her.
She was probably thinking along the lines of the mast that's in front of the ship a lot of times.
Yeah, I know the gangplank.
That's what she
was thinking for boarding. The brow, BROW, is what they call it in the Navy, the thing you get on and off. So,
absolutely. All right. So before we air the commercial, and we start talking about the book that brought us here, or books, I guess, in this case, that brought us here. How did you get into writing? Because, a lot of people like to read. Not a lot of people that like to read decide they want to write their own book. So how did that come about for you?
I was hit vehicle versus pedestrian by a 1-ton truck when I was 15 years old. and I was put in a wheelchair for 8 months. At that point in time, I was really heavily invested in the dark days of AOL, build your own chat room, and the role playing side of it. I was in a vampire guild. I had a slutty, sexy vampire character, and you know, my car accident was a really, really dark time in my life. I was intentionally hit by a neighbor that was mad at us, and he was stalking me. So it was really, really bad. And reading became and role playing became my big escape. And then eventually I wanted to write the background of my slutty vampire. And that turned into a book that will never see the light of day. It's in a shelf in my room and no one's ever going to read it. It's terrible. But that really just ignited a love of writing for me, the role playing and then writing the background story. So I I just dove in. I through my mid to late teens and early 20s, I had several various projects. And then somewhere in my mid 20s, I started writing From the Ashes, which was my first book. But
Right.
I have non radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, which is a degenerative autoimmune disease. And I was really, really sick. So I could, I'd write a little bit and then I go months without writing. And I finished the first draft, and someone who is a well known author, who is a friend of mine, read it and told me that she could tell it had been written over a long period of time and then edited and re-edited and over edited, and she gave me the advice to write it from scratch. So while my husband was deployed to Japan, I rewrote the book from memory. I put it in an archive file, never looked at it, and rewrote the whole thing from memory. There's only one scene that I kept from the first draft. And yeah, so while he was deployed and I was home alone with three kids, ages 2 to 14, I rewrote it, and that's it. It's the rest is history.
It would help if I unmute myself. Now we're going to pause for a moment. I appreciate you explaining that. That's interesting. But we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the woman this time.
Oh, okay.
If Princess Linathena cannot stave off civil war, then a mad goddess will surely take the throne. The king of Lithonia is dying. When he is gone, Lithonia will be ruled by either a cruel sadist or a 6-year-old boy. Princess Linathena Morthon is third in line, and she has no intention of letting her country burn. She will do whatever she must to protect her people, even if that means leaving the country she loves. When the mad goddess of Hathor sets her gaze upon Lithonia's throne, the king decides to use Princess Linathena as a bargaining chip with his closest allies in Cael Donan. Now stranded in a foreign country, away from her center of political power, Linathena must use every tool at her command to scrape together allies and save her country from a fate worse than death. But will her would-be husband be one of those allies, or just another enemy? Author Kristina Gruell debuts with a dark, high-stakes political fantasy where every new face hides a potential threat. Pick up From the Ashes and discover the shadow games that will determine the future of several nations.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. So before we get started talking about the Dark Moon book, which is part of the Night Goddess series, what would you rate it? So before we get into the book itself, for people that are listening, because they want to know this, what would you rate this on a movie theater scale, I guess, so people can relate?
The Dark Moon is definitely, I would say, anyone 14 and up could read it. There's no hanky panky that you have to worry about. There are some bad guys. So yeah, that was an old cover though, From the Ashes and the old blurb. I'll have to get you the new one.
Sure, we can swap the commercial out. No harm, no foul. So what is the premise of the Dark Moon and the Night Goddess series?
So in Blood and Fire series, the first series, there is an event that happens at the end of the book that is not only earth change or world changing, but it has ripple reflect effects through the system that the world of Redalon, which is the In Blood and Fire series, is located in. And some of those ripple effects hit Vesteria, which is where the Dark Moon is located. And a magical enclosure is shattered. And so people have been locked out of this area called the Dome Lands for a long time. And in the Dark Moon, there's a race by the people who've been locked in to find out what's happened in the outside world, and a race that are from the outside world to find answers, but to also grasp the center of power, to find magical artifacts, to figure out what happened and how it can be weaponized against others. Nixa, the night goddess, has been imprisoned for 300 years. And when when the dome breaks, she's set free, but she's weakened, and she's got to regain her power and try and right the wrongs that were committed by her daughter.
So given that you have chosen to put all of your books in the same world because it's big enough and there's enough periods in time that even if the series never touched, the world is the same. So you're looking at the history of the world. Do they have to read the other From the Ashes series in order to understand this one, or can this one stand alone?
Yeah, it can stand alone. There's definitely, the In Blood and Fire series adds to it. But if you're new to my world, you can definitely read The Dark Moon. And then there's a free novella that you get if you sign up for my newsletter. You get the Eclipse novella and the Spark novella, which are the prequels to both series, for free. So you can try out my work before you ever buy it and get 2 free ebooks. But you can read the Night Goddess series, which is Eclipse and the Dark Moon, by themselves.
Okay. And we're recording this. The book is not yet out for wide distribution. It's only available on our website.
Yes.
So if you listen to this later, we're leaving it on our website. Will it stay on your website for sale too?
Oh, yeah. And my website is actually the better prices that you'll get. And there's an exclusive version for paperback on my website. This is The Dark Moon. So the wide version is this one. And, oh, no. This is the exclusive version. So all of the start of the chapters for the exclusive version have these beautiful full 2-page spreads. I love it.
Nice.
And then the ones that will be available for, for wide distributions don't have that. I've got to figure out which one it is. There it goes. They just have the little moon phases thing.
Okay, that is cool.
So if you want the really pretty cool one, you go to my website.
So we will leave that because obviously if you like supporting authors, then if you can buy it direct, generally speaking, that is a better price. Now, can they leave reviews on your website?
Yes.
Awesome. I know that's a feature a lot of authors are starting to add as well. Because if you're going to buy it direct, you still want to kind of be able to look at reviews. Although since it is wide, you could also check reviews there, dear listener, or go to Goodreads, I think, if that's still a thing. I haven't been on there in years.
Yeah, I haven't been on there. It's going supposed to go wide, I believe, in May through my distributor. So.
And you can't always control that. Is there any plans to do audiobook for this one?
It is something I'd like to do. It's not something I have plans for at the moment because the audiobook as an indie author is expensive.
Yeah, sometimes you're looking at, $300 per finished hour kind of range, which means it's not that just, I give you that rate, dear listener. So if it's a 10-hour book and it's $300 per hour, you can do the math. That's how the audiobook narrators calculate their price rather than making you pay for every hour where they had to re-record because they messed up. They charge you for the finished hour.
Yeah.
Which is still fair. Like I'm not even complaining.
Oh yeah, no, it is.
Do good work. I'd rather have a person than a machine read it to me. But
Yeah, like my, my first series is a little bit longer. So this is book 2 with the new covers.
Nice.
And
I like those covers.
yeah, the covers for the new, when I recovered them and rebranded, the covers are beautiful. And yeah, I love them. These also have a kind of a smoke situation because it's the In Blood and Fire series
Makes sense.
on the pages on my website.
So we will link to all of that, and then I will coordinate with you to get that commercial fixed later.
Yeah. My if you go on my website, there's the you're able to kind of look at them by series, and then
cool.
there's also a suggested reading order. I always say there's no right or wrong way to read a book or read the series, my books in general, unless you're starting at book 5 of series 1. That's messed up.
I mean, there are people that live dangerously out there. I try not to judge. I noticed the operative word was try not to judge. All right, so this is rated, you said PG because there's most of the bad stuff happens off scene. What was the inspiration for your gods? Did you lean into the mythology or did you make up something new?
A little bit of both. The Summerlight universe, which is my universe, also has a system which is an alternate reality of our own solar system. There is a series that I'm working on. I'm hoping to have the first book out sometime next year, which is a magic school set in the 1990s in New York State. So the kind of the mythos is, the mythical gods of our world have aspects in my world. They may not line up exactly, like I have a goddess named Hathor. She doesn't have a cow's head. And one of like the big flashbacks that I got of people that read book 1 but then didn't read the rest is, there's just like there's misinformation in our world, there's misinformation in a fantasy world. Robert Jordan played into that really well with the Wheel of Time, where rumors, when you hear about something that happened a long way off or a long time ago, the facts are not always going to be relayed accurately. So myths that turn into legends, rumors that turn into, that's not going to be exactly what happened. And that happens a lot in the In Blood and Fire series, where stuff that happened a long time ago, colors the goddess Hathor and the goddess Hestia in a really, really bad light. And then as you read the series, you find out that's not what really happened. So yeah, it's a blend of it's like making a soup. I took a little bit from mythology, and then I added my own spin and a couple of other ingredients to make my own gods.
That makes sense. Now, is the terrain set on Earth?
For the so the Summerlight universe has 3 different systems. The published books are in totally new worlds. They're not based off of our world.
Okay.
So I have like a really, really cool map. I'll shoot it to you, of the world of Redalon, and it's definitely not Earth-like.
Okay, and if you want to see that yourself, I bet if you joined, she does have a Discord server, so if you want to hop on over there, join the discussions. So that's a cool nerdy peeps, and they stay apolitical just like we like here at the Blasters and Blades. So they stick to the nerdy things we love, and there's no reason to get decisive because we can all be friends, which I really appreciate. Too many places get distracted by the stuff that divides us instead of what unites us, which is namely hating everyone that puts pineapples on pizza.
Oh yeah, I don't like pineapples on pizza.
I'm kidding. We don't really hate you. We just judge you silently. So that is the world of the story takes place. What can you tell us about the main character of the Dark Moon, the Night Goddess series?
It is the Night Goddess herself, Nixa. She has, yep. She has been in prison for 300 years, and you know, her jailers wake up and realize they don't know why they're where they are. You know, they've had their minds tampered with, and so she gets out and she has to kind of figure out what's happened in the 300 years that she's been locked in this magical prison that's been draining her power. She's weakened. She's not able to travel off world like most gods can because her power is so diminished, and she's really struggling to come to terms with things that members of her family have done, and things that she should have done different to prevent some bad things happening. So she's in a dark place. The dark moon is the dark phase in her life, and she's having to work through a lot of trauma while also trying to start making things right.
Okay, so it's kind of a redemption tale.
It's a redemption tale for a lot of characters. There's an assassin's guild who has been using magic for dark powers. You know, it's the In Blood and Fire series had a huge cast of POV characters, and it was a big epic tale. And I've tried to focus this one on a smaller group of people that are all just trying to deal with the aftermath of this world breaking event and finding their way through these dark times and into the light, while other factions are just trying to bring the world into darker times. So it's that
Okay,
balance of power, balance of good and evil, but
so
with a human element.
so given that level of darkness, would you say this is grimdark or no?
No, it's definitely not as dark as the In Blood and Fire series, where people stole other people's faces and pretended to be them.
That would be problematic
Yeah,
unless.
I like I said, I would say PG-14. My younger two aren't ready to read it. I wouldn't let them read it.
I don't know that grimdark as a setting style it necessarily means it is graphic. I think
Yeah.
grimdark is more the lack of hope in the world, and where kind of everything is shades of gray, which I don't necessarily mind as long as there's a hopeful ending. I just don't want to have slogged through hundreds of pages just for everyone I like to die, and that's the end. I'm like, if I wanted that, I could read the newspaper.
Yeah, no, this one is definitely, there's more, there's beacons of hope through the world. There's definitely characters that are shining light, as opposed to just everything being dark.
Now, with the main POV character being the goddess, was that more difficult to write because by default she's kind of already OP, overpowered as a character?
So I take the George R. Martin approach to my chapters. I do have multiple POV characters, and for the most part, none are more important. No one's point of view is more or less important than anyone else's. So she is one of the 5 main protagonists of the series, but she gets equal screen time with the assassin and with the priestess and with the dragon, uh, who is her companion / niece, because gods be doing some crazy shit. Yeah, so I mean, writing her scenes were difficult, but since yeah, she's a goddess, and in most aspects that would make her OP, but her power is so diminished that she's just a step above a really good magic user at this point.
Now, when you say it's diminished, is it diminished because she's been cut off from the source of power? Is it tied to her worshippers? Tinkerbell style, they got to believe in clap and all that. Like, what is the source of the power that is thus diminished?
It's a little bit of both. So the prison that she was in actually sapped her powers. It drew her strength, and she was in there for 300 years. And part of the way that she revitalizes herself is being exposed to moonlight and not being as exposed to sunlight, because she is the night goddess. And her particular prison was a glass cavern. So she could not escape the sun. And then it was made of a metal that negated her abilities as well. And then she also gains strength from those praying to her. So it's kind of a bit of both. And with the shield erected, with her prison the way it was, she could not hear the voices of her followers. She could not interact with her priestesses, and then she was just also being sucked dry.
Okay, so how did you come up with this premise then?
In the shower.
Okay.
I was just kind of at the end, you know, I was it was after I had finished The World Ablaze, and there's a cataclysmic event at the end of that one. And I was just taking a shower and thinking about, you know, what happens when a magical bomb that big is detonated? How does it affect the world itself and the worlds around it? Because I had established very early on in the In Blood and Fire series that big magical events, and especially big magical events that are created by magical beings who their souls are tied to the greater fabric of the universe, have ripple effects. So what ripple effects are this bomb being detonated basically going to have on the worlds around Redalon? And I already knew that Nixa was imprisoned, and I kind of thought, well, what if this event breaks her prison? And I just kind of went with it, and I started, just sat down at the keyboard and let stuff flow. And eventually, you know, just the other characters started wandering in my head and telling me other things that were going on in the world. And you know, that's just how it happened.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil too much from The World Ablaze, but it's, yeah.
No, not at all. I understand. Now, obviously, on the cover, we see what looks to be a dragon.
Yes.
So, what kind of mystical creatures are in this world? Obviously, you have magic, and you have sort of right at the edge of the Victorian sort of age of steam, as it were.
So this world is actually in a different technological bubble. We don't have steam engines. It was a world that was powered by magic, that was set, you know, a lot of the magical advances that had been achieved were kicked back into the Stone Age when the dome was erected. Before the dome was erected, it was a very much a dystopian society. There was no war. Medical advances could cure just about anything. You could talk to people from one end of the world to the other. There were ways of fast travel, but the center of political, economic, and magical governance was inside this area where the dome was erected. And the person that erected that dome destroyed society as it was and set it back quite a bit.
So this is almost a parallel dimension to the other series?
It's a different world in the same system. So it's like Earth and Mars, how different stuff happens.
Okay. I see what you're saying. So it's a different planet in the same solar system that the other ones. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do they have ways to communicate planet to planet yet, or no?
Gods and godling descendants can travel from planet to planet, but it's very, very difficult. So there's like vortexes that they can open to connect the world. from one to another, but only people of supreme power can do that.
So besides the dragon, what other creatures are in this world?
We have magical horses that are immune to many diseases. They have long lifespans, and they can kind of sense. There's a little bit of telepathy between them and their owner. The horse is bonded to a specific person. And we have magical dogs who have very long lifespans for a dog, so they can live like 50 years. They can speak mind to mind with their bonded night priestess, and they kind of serve as scouts and protectors for the priestesses who are in hiding from the dark guilds. So the priestesses have to pretend that they're not what they are, and they travel alone or in pairs, and their magical puppies protect them.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Dogs are the superior pet.
Yes, and they the dogs are immune to different types of magic than the horses, and they cannot get sick by any human like diseases, and there's no doggy cancer.
I like that.
Yeah.
So with the main characters, obviously it sounds like the goddess's daughter is the antagonist. Are there other bad guys that they're sort of facing?
Yeah, so there's the Eternal Guild, which is a all men's magical organization that has a vendetta against the night goddesses priestesses, and basically any woman that can do magic. There's also when the center of magical government was cut off, it became every country and territory for themselves. So a lot of them stopped following the old ways of teaching magic, but also the old ways of government. And rulers became power hungry and territory hungry, and there was a lot of aggressive moves between countries. So there's the Eternal Guild. There's a couple of unnamed protagonists that show up in book 2. We also learn very early on that Nixa's husband and her son are missing. And those were her allies. And so one of the big mysteries of the series is, where are her husband and son?
So with this series, right now book 1 is out, right? Book 2 will be coming soon.
Yes.
How long do you see this story arc being? Because like your other one was 5 books? Is that where you feel comfortable at with the series, or is this one going to go longer?
I'm planning on doing this one as a trilogy. I do have 2 other series that I'm in the early stages of planning, and one of them that I'm writing that will be 7 books and 14 books, respectively.
Okay. So you're letting sort of the scope of the plot dictate the length of this series.
Yeah. I am, the big thing for this world is Nixa getting her power back and finding her husband and her son, so that they can start the work of rebuilding Vesteria into what it should be. And then Zarotha, who is the dragon, has some babies that are going to shake up things as well. So we have dragon babies.
That is cool. I kind of want a dragon. That would be fun. You're gonna put a saddle on that puppy and ride it into the stars.
That just might happen.
So, given what you've done to your main characters, by being the goddess of this world and creating all of their torment, if you met them in a dark alley, how do you see that playing out?
Oh, Nixa would mess me up.
I mean, she's a goddess, so that one was a given. What about the assassin and the others?
Actually, the assassin is his arc did not go how I thought it would. He is one of my favorite characters. I think he'd be pretty okay with me, and so would the night goddess. Zarotha, the dragon, I would not want to meet in any kind of alley, light or dark. So like the Eclipse, which is the novella, really sets up, what's happened in this world. And Nixa and Zarotha had some shit go down in Eclipse that would make them not like me.
That's fair. So is there anything about this universe? Because obviously the plot of this one kind of lends itself to spoilers if we try to talk too deeply. And obviously we don't want to do spoilers here. So is there anything that we didn't ask that you think we need to know before, we wrap this up?
Yeah, so one of the really cool things about when the dome was erected, it wasn't just a magical barrier. The dome sank down into the crust of the earth and created a chasm. So even when the dome falls, it's not like people can just go back and forth. There's these huge chasms that have to be crossed, and they actually like dig down into like the ocean crust, and wall canyon walls come up. So like where the chasm is between the oceans, there's like hundreds of feet wide, where the ocean's on this side, the ocean's on this side, and then you have the canyon that runs through it. So it's really interesting. The big fight, the battle for people to cross the chasm and to figure out what's going on either side of it, and then the Eternal Guild wanting to seize power. There's so many obstacles in their way, and so that really gives the characters something to struggle against.
You think you're going to be able to contain this to 3 books? Because this sounds like it's going to get long. In a good way.
It is my hope. I think book 3 might be, books 2 and 3 might be longer and longer than book 1, but I'm really wanting to try and keep it to 3. I have a title sequence where I'd like the moon phases are very important to this one. So yeah.
I have never met a short story that I couldn't envision turning into like a 20-book arc, so I might have a problem. This might just be a me thing.
Yeah. But, with the In Blood and Fire series, I also did write, there's 3 novellas and 3 short stories that add to the world. And I might do that again. I've got the prequel. There might be 2 or 3 other short stories that I release that are, encapsulated events that happen in the world, that kind of add to it. But for main novels, I'm trying to keep it to 3.
Okay. So this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book, and it really does matter. So if you want to help out a new artist, a starving artist, a not so starving artist, regardless, they are helped when you leave reviews. It really does make a difference. So if the series is up your alley, go give it a read and leave a review. You can review it on Amazon, Goodreads, Kristina's website, other websites coming soon, but share it with everybody. And with that, Kristina, how might listeners and viewers at home find you if they want to check you out?
I have a website called the Summerlight Universe, and it's got all my books are on there, but I also write blogs from time to time about various topics, from board games to things I cook to what I'm reading. And I even share, graphics or maps or things of the world. They're welcome to join my Discord server, where they get to hear me. Sometimes I'll pop into Discord and ask my readers there a question that shapes how the books are going to be, shapes how I write. So they get to be part of the process and also kind of hear some things that happen along the way. And then I'm on Facebook, Threads, TikTok, and Instagram as well.
Nice. I've linked all of that, dear listener, in the show notes. So check it out. And you can also talk nerdy with people who also like the books that you like, which is also fun. You can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Twitters, the Spotify, the Discord, the Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We've got our email over there at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people keep the shenanigans. I'm Stabby Stab. Over there on the Instagram, Twitter, and the email, you can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section, it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee till it pours out of their eyeballs, people, and I'll still drink it because coffee is coffee. Am I right? And if you go to the link in the show notes for that coffee brand coffee, use the code PODCASTGRUNTS. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win. This is not a drop shipping operation. They roast those beans here in the continental United States, and they do ship abroad. If you are overseas, you, instead of getting them from their website and giving us a kickback, you could go to Amazon and type in coffee brand coffee, and you could buy the coffee there as well. Leave a review. Just put in the review, the Blasters and Blades sent you, and that's worth its weight in gold too. They know we're still here pimping their stuff. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my absent and still insanely crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time. We'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And before we hit the end button, I almost forgot. When she talks about the cooking stuff, she's really good. She's helped me make recipes adaptive to people's dietary issues. Kristina and I have had those conversations in the past.
Yeah.
And she talks cooking in her Discord. So if you like food, you're going to like, although I heard she's one of the authors you don't read when you're hungry because she'll make you hungrier.
Yeah, it's a big complaint of my readers of having to DoorDash when they're reading because they become so hungry.
You should get a discount from the DoorDash. Like you should get hey, kickback.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. Thank you and we're going to, with that, hit the end button, and hopefully you guys will